Yeah, good afternoon all. Good afternoon. Today's resource person, Dr. Rajeshwari Hegde, Professor BMS College of Engineering. Good
Good
afternoon to all
afternoon.
the friends. Today, day 4, session 3, very exciting and it is a compulsory session, mandatory session. It is prescribed by the Atal fraternity. Now I request our colleague Kavita Devi, faculty from EC department, to introduce Professor Rajeshwari Megde, today's resource person, and she will introduce you by reading the biography of Professor Rajeshwari Megde.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce today's resource person, Dr. Rajeshwari Egrema. Dr. Rajeshwari Egrema completed her bachelor degree in electronics and communication engineering in Mysore, in electronics and Communications College of Engineering, Bangalore. Currently, she is guiding PhD students and her publications are Madam published more than 110 technical papers in reputed international and national conferences and journals, and also won Best Paper Award for the papers. And her projects are Madam guided more than 80 BE projects, and one of her team received a prize in the national level project organized by Texas Instruments. She is one of the 10 worldwide expert panel for reviewing beta test phase of the version 2 MS430 teaching ROM for Texas. She is one of the technical leaders of various international conferences and journals, and also one of the editorial board member of reputed international engineering journals. And the awards received by her are first prize in newspeak contest organized by Intel 2006, and Professor Indira Parikh Education Leaders Award in 2018, Rula International World Award in 2018 as an excellent researcher, Divan Mehta National Education Award in 2018, and the second best UG project at institutional level competition with cash prize of rupees 1000, and Havayaka Ratna Award in second, Vishwa Havyaka Sammelana in 2018 at Palace Grounds. Thank you, ma'am, and I request ma'am to continue the session.
Thank you, madam, for the nice introduction. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Good afternoon, one and all. Topic of my presentation is Science of Meditation. Engineer your mind and heart for well-being. I welcome you all to this 1.5 hour session on Science of Meditation. So according to World Health Organization, health is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Here, the well being refers to a positive rather than neutral state, framing health as a positive aspiration. So, if you look at this diagram itself, so all these physical, social, and mental well being, all these are interrelated. So this definition of health was adopted by the 1986 Ottawa Charter, which describes health as a resource for everyday life, not the object of living. So, from the perspective of health, is a means to live well, which highlights the link between health and participation in society. So let us look at the wellness dimensions. Basically, there are 8 wellness dimensions. So wellness is nothing but holistic integration of physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. So for physical well-being, we fuel the body by taking sattvic food. So engage our mind with positive thoughts and nurture the spirit or nurture the soul through meditative practices. So what is physical well-being? All of us know a person is physically well when all his systems work well, when he is free from illness, and when he is able to carry out everyday physical activities. So to keep our health fit, physical health fit, so we do exercise, take food, so we good food, so we walk every day, etc. for our physical well-being. But always we neglect our mental well-being. So what is mental well-being? According to World Health Organization, poor mental health is a risk factor for chronic physical conditions. So mental well-being is all about how well we can cope up with day-to-day life, how well we can handle ups and downs with confidence, how well we can have positive relationships, how well we can work towards our goals and empower others to do the same. If you look at this diagram, so whether your mind is full or we are mindful, so always will be in the first situation. So our mind is full of thoughts and so many things, and only through meditative practices we become mindful. Then what is social well-being? Social well-being is all about ability to build personal connections with others, deal with conflicts, and be a part of positive social network. Being able to
Ma'am, sorry to disturb you, ma'am.
yeah,
Uh, we are not able to see your slides. Only the
sorry,
French.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, okay, okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
One minute, I'll share. Can you see the screen now?
Your
Can you see the screen now?
Yes,
screen
ma'am.
in the sense, it is showing the folder, ma'am. Like PPT is not seen.
Oh, okay. Now?
Yeah, PPT is, yeah, it's seen, ma'am.
Okay. So I was talking about social well-being. Social well-being is all about our ability to build personal connections with others, deal with conflicts, and be a part of positive social network. So, or being able to make friends, meet new people, and to build healthy relationships. So, another dimension to health is spiritual well-being. So, spiritual well-being is all about our inner life and its relationship with the wider world. So it is basically to understand ourselves and to correct ourselves, that is spiritual well-being. So it includes our relationship with the environment, our relationships with others, and with ourselves, that is our own self. It's also about feeling content with life, maintaining balance and control of life, building positive relationships, And one more thing is our inside and outside must be perfectly same. Not showing outside something which I am not inside myself. So, what causes imbalance in our physical, mental, social, and spiritual well being? It's all about our continuous or unregulated thoughts. So, every time, so all the times we'll be getting continuous thoughts, either will be in the past, future, hardly will be in the present or at this current moment. How many thoughts does one have an average every day? So, according to research, average person gets 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. And out of 60 to 70,000 thoughts, 50% thoughts are neutral. So that means they are of no relevance, common, no impact. So when we get thoughts, when we walk, seeing scenes, etc., and close to 49% of thoughts are said to be negative thoughts, like I cannot do, I won't do, I'm not able to do. So doubts, fear, lack of faith, etc. And hardly 1% of thoughts are positive thoughts. So hence thoughts do have an impact on the environment as well as other human beings. And sometimes powerful thoughts could even affect places, events, and people even at a distance. Hence, regulation of thoughts have a beneficial effect on both the thinker himself and others. So, Dr. Masaru Emoto, a Japanese researcher, photographer, entrepreneur, conducted a series of experiments observing the physical effect of words, prayers, music, and environment on the crystalline structures of water. The water exposed to positive thoughts and speech would result in visually pleasing crystalline structures being formed, and the water exposed to negative thoughts and intention would yield ugly frozen crystal formations. So let us have a look at the video. So if the effect of our words has so much effect on the water crystals, imagine the effect of the thoughts on our body and surroundings. So what is stress? According to World Health Organization, the world stress is the world epidemic of the 21st century. So it is a major issue to companies and to people in general. And there is no magic pill that it could make and just delete stress. Individuals and corporations spend vast amounts of money to try and deal with stress. In fact, WHO has declared stress as the world epidemic of the 21st century. And according to WHO, depression and anxiety disorders cost the global economy of US $1 trillion each year. And WHO estimates that India will suffer economic losses amounting to a staggering $1.03 trillion from mental health conditions between 2012 to 2030. So this I took it from the internet. 61% Indians suffering from mental health issues during lockdown. So this was from Times of Indian Express, 17th May 2020. So this shows the cases of depressive disorder by WHO, African, Eastern European region of Americas, Southeast Asia, and Western Pacific. So if you consider Southeast Asia, it is 27%. And adult mental disorders is the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-old globally, 75% before 24 years and 50% by the age of 14 years. So what causes stress? So unregulated mind creates or causes stress. So what is stress and what are its multiple forms? So stress is nothing but a state of mental or emotional strain due to external or internal circumstances. We all try and avoid it, but it finds a way into our lives. But we need to realize that stress is not completely negative. So what I feel is we actually need stress, but we only need the positive stress, that is good stress. This positive stress or the good stress is called eustress, and it actually may increase our focus and concentration, our capacity to engage and perform well, creating a feeling of satisfaction and happiness. The problem is when we are exposed to a too high a level or stress and for too long time, then eustress becomes distress. So that means when eustress becomes distress, it is harmful. So it is bad stress. If we look at the different stages of stress or different types of stress, first type of stress is called the to-do list. All of us have that to-do list, what we have to do every day. So it is when a person feels the pressure to complete a certain amount of task in a limited time frame. And second type of stress is like a sudden small accident or fearful event. As a result of rush or when we are in a hurry, when we want to finish an important task, grab a coffee, rush to office, etc. So that is second type of stress. And third type of stress is a deep fear or trauma. So this could be due to an intensely stressful event, for instance, a serious sporting accident or being bitten by a dog, etc. So these are the different types of stress, and even things like fear to speak in public, fear to be abandoned, etc. Causes stress. And fourth type of stress is caused by the fear of not to be able to cope with the increasing speed of life, where we are exposed to more demands, more responsibilities with less resources, less amount of time, even less money. And all of this while we feel duty bound to keep a happy face. So these multiple types of stress often overlap, and a person can experience continuous exposure to stress, leading to chronic stress condition. And this chronic stress condition is very harmful to our well-being. So most of the stress we experience is self-generated. How we perceive life, whether an event makes us feel threatened or stimulated, encouraged or discouraged, happy or sad. So it depends on ourselves. Depends to a large extent on how we perceive ourselves. So what happens when we are stressed? So what are the changes that take place in our body to when we are stressed? So when we are stressed, our sympathetic nervous system is activated, which leads to a state of overall elevated activity and attention, known as the fight or flight response. The sympathetic nervous system is known to be the inducer of stress response in the human system. Whereas parasympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, promotes the rest and digest processes, helping restore the body to a state of calmness. So this shows the biology of stress, flight or fight response. So what are the physical indications of fight or flight response? So dilated pupils, trembling, pale or flushed skin, rapid heartbeat and breathing. So again, these are the changes that take place when we are stressed. Saliva flow decreases, blood vessels constrict, heart beats faster and harder, stomach output of digestive enzymes decreases, muscles become more tense, trembling can occur, pupils dilate, lungs quick deep breathing occurs, foot movement slows down, and blood pressure increases as major vessels dilate. So this is the situation in our daily life. So when we are at work, always we face this kind of situation: fight, flight, or freeze. So fight, say something back, or flight, so just physically leave the area, or freeze, don't say anything and hope that the person will leave. Hence, when we are faced with actual or perceived dangerous or threatening situations, our fight, flight, or freeze stress response is activated. So that means our sympathetic nervous system is activated. This unconscious defense mechanism enables us to instantaneously evaluate the situation and triggers a series of physiological processes to support our survival. So meditation produces relaxation response. So this is the textbook by Herbert Benson, Dr. Herbert Benson. All the physical, chemical, psychological changes are collectively called relaxation response. So this relaxation response changes in metabolism, heart rate, respiration, blood pressure, and brain chemistry. And this helps in reducing the stress. So meditation, again, according to research, it was found that meditation reduces sympathetic drive and improves parasympathetic activity. So stress response, or when sympathetic nervous system is activated, it increases heart rate, BP, glucose in bloodstream, muscle tension, cortisol, it's a stress hormone, then rate of aging and Whereas in case of relaxation response, when a person is relaxed, it decreases the heart rate, blood pressure is normal, and reduces glucose in bloodstream, muscle tension, cortisol, etc. So this shows the interconnection between our senses, our body, mind, and heart. So all of us perceive with five senses. Our mind knows and understands. Our heart, it discriminates and gives direction. And finally, our body performs action. Stress becomes distress. That is, eustress or good stress becomes distress when this pathway is not balanced. So this shows the brain-heart connection. Again, according to research, heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. Heart signals influence emotional processing such as love, friendship, peace, joy, etc. And also it influences cognitive faculties such as attention, perception, memory, problem solving, etc. According to the research conducted by HeartMath Institute, heart is more powerful than brain. Heart is about 100,000 times stronger electrically and up to 5,000 times stronger magnetically than the brain. And the heart radiates an electromagnetic field affecting each other's moods, attitudes, and feelings, whether we are conscious of it or not. So is there any method which connects our heart and mind so that our heart and mind are in sync? Always what happens is our mind says one thing and our heart says other thing. So it is so when heart and mind are in not sync, so our decisions could be wrong. If heart and mind are in sync, so then we have only one decision and always that decision is right. So let us have a look at this video, the scientific power of meditation.
For thousands of years, people have practiced meditation for spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. But from a scientific perspective, how exactly does meditating affect your body? Does it really do anything? It all starts with the brain. During meditation, brain scans see increased activity in regions directly correlated with decreased anxiety, depression, along with increased pain tolerance. The default mode network in particular is activated when one's mind is at rest and not focusing on the outside world, and has been found to improve memory, self-awareness, and goal setting. Want to be more caring to your friends and family? When scientists compared the brains of Buddhist monks to new meditators, they found the region of the brain associated with empathy to be much more pronounced in the monks. It also literally changes your brain waves, and we can measure these frequencies. Meditators have higher levels of alpha waves, which have been shown to reduce feelings of negative mood, tension, sadness, and anger. And if that wasn't enough, it also physically changes our brain shape and size. Studies found that after 8 weeks of a meditation program, brain matter was more dense in areas associated with learning, memory processing, and emotion regulation. And yet the amygdala, which deals with stress, blood pressure, and fear, had decreased brain matter. When we look at the entire body, not only do we see decreased blood pressure, but it can also increase the variability of your heart rate. And while this may sound harmful, it actually plays a critical role in properly transporting oxygen and carbon dioxide throughout your body if you're getting sick. In a study where both meditators and non-meditators were given the flu virus, meditators were able to produce a greater number of antibodies and had increased immune function. If we go a little deeper, we can even see changes on a cellular level. Your chromosomes have protective protein complexes called telomeres, which help reduce damage to your DNA and lower cell death. And the shortened telomere length has been linked to several diseases such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cancer. Amazingly, when cancer survivors completed a meditation program, their bodies showed significant increases in telomere length. It's believed that psychological intervention, particularly decreasing stress, has a direct effect on the enzyme telomerase, which has been shown to counteract shortening by adding DNA to the shrinking telomeres. Of course, meditation is not a substitute for other medical advice or a healthy lifestyle. We don't want you leaving this video thinking it will cure cancer, but much like hitting the gym can grow your muscles and increase your overall health, it seems that meditation may be a way of working out your brain with extra health benefits. And since your brain controls, well, all of you, why not relax and say, every once in a while. And if you like working out your brain, be sure to get our ASAP 1000.
So we have seen the benefits of meditation. Researchers are working on the benefits of meditation. So Heartfulness Research Scholar is working on the telomere. Usually what happens is due to age, telomere length decreases, and in a meditator, regular practitioner of meditator, so this telomere length increases. And so this increase in telomere length helps you to keep your health fit. And why meditation matters at the individual and at the collective level. So this slide shows the importance of meditation at individual level. So if you look at the mathematics of thoughts, University of California, San Diego estimates that we have 70,000 thoughts a day. So an average man gets 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. So if we get 70,000 thoughts a day, 2,900 thoughts per hour, or 48 thoughts per minute, or one thought every 1.25 seconds. So that means our thoughts is unregulated and it is continuous. And so this is our modern life. Always we will be running around, and will be continuously working, and we are fighting an invisible war. So all the times we will be working, thinking, and so this causes stress. And so these are all at the individual level. So we are fighting an invisible war, so you can see these pictures. And at the collective level, so in the broader social and work context, all of us live in a changing world, and with our busy lives and VUCA world. So VUCA world, this VUCA comes from a military, so it's a military world. So volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So the life of a military person is always volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And most of the time, these words resonate with our work or life. So it was found that meditation removes disturbing thoughts, reduces mental stress, and harmonizes brain's electrical activity, and it relaxes and harmonizes the activity of the mind. This diagram shows brain before and after 10 minutes of meditation. So deep breathing can activate the vagus nerve, hence the relaxed response. Yesterday, Madam told about pranayama and how it helps us to reduce the stress and keep our health fit. Relaxation allows reframing of information, triggers the relaxed response, and normalizes metabolism functioning. Heart-based meditation can re-establish heart-brain coherence, which is conducive to higher cognitive activities. So let us have a look at this video, Science of Focus.
People were experience of their own, they were not such high rock and high pitch jumping or paintings
into sitting in meditation. To describe to as a state of fully immersed the present moment, feeling of energized focus. For him, flow is composed of the following elements, where there is a concentration which is fully focused and grounded in the present moment, where there is merging awareness and action, where there is a feeling when one can deal with any kind of challenge, trusting its own anchoring knowledge of the skill, competence that it has to, where there is a distorted sense of time, looking like a continuous present moment, and there is an uncoverable feeling of feeling good, where our intrinsic enjoyment for the activity that we are performing. So experiences have been reporting in all kinds of activities. There is an interesting state which is called the just enough time. One is able to heighten its skill to overcome difficulty, but at the same time without being overwhelmed by the situation. So there is a kind of high resolution self-awareness so that we can discriminate between, or we can control distraction or strategies which may go to distance. That was recognized in the sport field that meditation can support the flow with people, like George Mansell, who was a trainer for the Chicago Bulls. We all have some experiences of those things, but most of the time it is happening from external activities and somehow by chance. The invitation application here is to be in flow with our own self, to be very in our own potential, and to do it in a more mastered fashion. We will say in this last part of the session that to reach our peak performance, we need to develop an attitude of continuous improvement through learning. Because if the subconscious mind allows us to do much competition and progress, it also has its downside. Because by definition, the subconscious mind operates below consciousness, and it learns voraciously from the external environment, good things and bad things. So below our awareness, we may acquire undesired habits or patterns, way of operating, and what producing or what we achieve. And it does play a role of ruler in the sense that this is the subconscious mind which will operate filter information we push to my conscious mind awareness. So we are not becoming aware that we are not aware of this undesired patterns or behaviors. Let me give you an example. I learned driving in France, where there is certain social bullying and a way of interacting between car drivers. Now I moved to India, where the way of driving and the social world, social thing is totally different from my country origin, where we not only drive left, but the way that we want to take, or the way we keep space, distance, and the way we inform the other person of my presence is totally different. And I will learn implicitly, even below my awareness, new ways of interacting, making my presence noticeable on the other drivers. And if I go back to France, then I may keep these behaviors which are not necessarily desirable in this French context. So we need to develop a high quality of awareness to identify these desirable subconscious behaviors and ensure that we move towards our goal. We need to develop continuous development aspects.
So this person is a heartfulness trainer from France. I have attended his session, and so from this video we can see that when we meditate, it helps us to live in the present. So it energizes our body and mind. It increases our concentration and helps us to control distraction. It also helps us to live with our own potential and explore live with our own self and explore our potential. So this already I have explained science of focus. So most of the time, so 50% of the time we are unfocused and we are negative by default, and so we can be transformed by mental training. So this mental training requires meditation. And so study by Helen Slaughter at the University of Amsterdam showed something surprising, that 3-month intensive Vipassana meditation can shorten the attention blink and improve the accuracy of attention. So it can improve the ability to manage the limited resource of attention even in a new task. So now what are the electrical changes that take place when we meditate? Already these waveforms have been explained, delta, theta, alpha, beta and gamma. So it's the high frequency wave. Delta, when we are in deep sleep state, so we get into delta state. Then theta is drifting into sleep or dreams, so which is 4 to 7 hertz. And alpha is when we are relaxed, contemplative and absorbed in a beautiful piece of music, or when we start to meditate. And beta is active in conversation and other activities. And gamma, it's found in meditators who have been practicing for many years, or the focus meditators. So next one is beta wave. Beta wave is, again I will not explain, already this has been explained. So the state is alert, normal, alert consciousness, active thinking. So it's active when we are in active conversation, when we make decisions, when we solve a problem, focus on a task, etc. Beta wave brainwaves are easiest to detect when we are busy thinking actively. And alpha wave, so when we are physically and mentally relaxed, alpha wave dominates. It's most easily observed and were the first one to be discovered. These alpha waves become detectable when the eyes are closed and the mind is relaxed. So they can also be found in during yoga, just before falling asleep, being creative, etc. Theta waves, according to Professor Jim of Sydney, theta waves indicate deep relaxation and occur more frequently in highly experienced meditators. And research has also shown a positive association of theta waves with memory, creativity, and psychological well-being. Delta wave is the lowest frequency wave, 0.5 to 3 hertz. So when we are in a sleep or dreaming state, the delta wave is dominant. So it is strongest when we are enjoying restorative sleep in a dreamless state. It was found that meditation increases alpha, theta and high beta. High beta is, as I told you, it is found in highly experienced meditators. So initially when we start meditation, so we'll be in delta state, that is low frequency state, and slowly we move to high frequency state. So that is from delta to high beta or gamma state. That means we will have awareness, 360-degree awareness of outside world, but still we'll be meditating. So that is found in experienced meditators. So this diagram shows how oxytocin, so it is happy hormone. So meditation, it was found that meditation increases or releases oxytocin, so which improves positive mood, stress coping, social well-being, trust and bonding, and it also reduces cholesterol, diabetes and anxiety. And meditation helps us to relieve from our mental stress and anxiety. When we are relieved of anxiety, it reduces heart rate, respiratory rate and BP. so which helps us to regulate it regulates regular slow deep breath, results in regular slow deep breaths, enhances oxygen intake and removes CO2, improved oxygen delivery to the body, so again, which in turn reduces breathing difficulty. And so these are the benefits of meditation. And so this slide shows the effect of heartfulness meditation on human consciousness. This work was carried out by a team of 10 members at Kana Shantivanam, the world's largest heartfulness meditation center, which can accommodate 1 lakh practitioners at a time, located in Hyderabad. This we have presented in the International Conference on Elevating Consciousness through Meditation for Global Harmony, organized by IIM Bangalore in August 2019. So we considered a sample size of 725 out of 25,000, and so age was between 21 to 75, and years of practice varied from 1 to 40, and number of meditation sessions was 4, and duration of each session lasted for 45 to 60 minutes. And we assist physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, so that is PEMS, before, during, and after meditation. Survey design was based on physical level experience, emotional experience, mental experience, etc. So physical experience includes stability, instability, discomfort, emotional experiences, sadness, anger, guilt, restless, happiness, joy, compassion, love, etc. And mental experiences or mental thoughts include unconnected to one another, intense, repetitive, obsessive, centered on myself, centered on my relationships, linked to my spiritual path, focused on the past, focused on the present, future, etc. And it was found that stability of the physical stability varied from 61 to 75. Before meditation, so the stability was 61%. 61% of the participants felt that they are stable before meditation, and after meditation, 75% felt that they are stable. And instability, if you look at instability, only 3% felt that they are unstable, and discomfort only 4%, 92, it reduced from 90 to 4%. Of course, we have not considered the health parameters of these participants. So next one is positive emotions. Joy, compassion, and love. I have considered only 3 parameters. Before and after. So before, the joy was 22%. So the 22% of the participants felt that so they are joyous before meditation, and 50% felt that they are joyous after meditation. Again, compassion increased from 17 to 38%, and love being the highest, 29 to 64%. And if you look at the negative emotions, so 13%, it reduced from 13% to 2%, and restlessness, 28, dropped from 28% to 3%, and guilt from 14% to 3%. This shows the EEG signal analysis of regular practitioner of meditation. The CEG signal was captured for 3 minutes. This shows before, during, and after. So we have captured alpha and delta waves, and also the meditative state. So here, last one is meditative state. If you look at the meditative state during meditation, so it is more or less stable. Our meditative state or our state of mind is more or less stable, whereas before it is not so stable, and again after meditation more or less it is stable. And first one is delta signal. So this shows before meditation, and so you can see here during meditation, so there are many spikes of delta wave. So delta wave is when we are in deep relaxation, delta wave is dominant. So during meditation, so delta wave is prominent. So again, after meditation, so again, it continue to be dominant. And so first middle two are alpha 1 and alpha 2. The frequencies are split into uh, 2. So when the delta wave is prominent, so during meditation, alpha wave is reduced. So this shows the EEG signal analysis of a non-meditator. So if you compare this with the previous one, so last one is a meditative state. Even a non-meditator, so when he meditates for 3 minutes, so more or less his mental state is stable. Whereas a delta wave, if I compare this with the regular practitioner, delta signal occurs 1 or 2 times, whereas alpha wave is again it is more or less similar to delta wave. It occurs more compared to meditator. And what happens during meditation? What exactly happens during meditation? So we'll look at this video. So as seen in this video published by Heartfulness Institute, in meditation, we move from the noise and turmoil of the outside as well as the inner mind to peace and stability of the inner environment, especially the heart. So physical benefits of meditation includes it enhances immune system, it lowers BP, decreases risk of heart attack and stroke, helps prevent digestive problems. Again, there are many research works carried out by heartfulness doctors and practitioners on the benefits of meditation, especially on immune system, BP and heart rate, etc. So again, those who meditate reduce the chances of heart disease by 87%, and it reduces the possibility of cancer by 55%. So what are the benefits of meditation in cancer patients? So one is decreased pain, decreased depression and anxiety, decreased confusion, more energy, fewer heart and gastrointestinal problems. So this diagram shows it all: rest plus pain and meditation plus pain. There's a small 1-minute video. Now, how to better understand and practice meditation. So let us consider an analogy. So you have a beautiful Ferrari and you are so happy driving everywhere across wide highways on long road trips exactly to your heart's desire. But you are so busy that you have no time to service it. So what happens after some time? So car's engine starts to lose its performance and eventually breaks down. Soon the car is no longer roadworthy. Why am I giving this analogy? So what is the engine's equivalent we need to keep in good condition? So we call this the mind or heart mind. Only when we service or train our mind, we can regulate our thoughts, and for this, we need meditative practice. So, what is meditation? So, I'll play the video again and then we'll have a short meditation.
Meditation is to think about one thing continuously, how great if possible. It is a complete thought. What is this complete thought? The idea of meditation being a complete thought can be compared to the process of digging a well. We go on digging until we find water. This implies holding on to a single idea continuously for a while. When we dig a well, what happens? Initially, some rocks and rubbish come out, then perhaps some old buried things come out, then some layers of rock come out. Then comes sand, and finally comes water. In the process of meditation, too, we find that many things come to the surface before the essential thing is found. For this, we require patience, we require effort, and of course, we require time. We find that without patience, there is no success in this endeavor.
So, heartfulness meditation gives us a simple scientific approach to meditation. After purifying and simplifying the mind and heart, we are able to realize our full potential and live a life of purpose. Why am I giving this heartfulness example? I have been practicing this heartfulness meditation since 1995 when I was a PG student, and I have benefited a lot from this meditative practice. Let us meditate for 5 to 10 minutes. Sit with your back straight. Gently close your eyes. Feel that the energy from Mother Earth is entering your feet, relaxing your feet. Energy is moving up, relaxing your ankles, your calf muscles, your knees, your thighs, both the legs are completely relaxed. Energy is moving up, relaxing your hips, lower back, your abdomen muscles, your upper back, your entire back is completely relaxed. Energy is moving up, relaxing your shoulders. Feel that your shoulders are melting away. Your fingers, palms, wrist, lower arm, elbows, upper arm, all are completely relaxed. Both the hands are completely relaxed. Bring your attention towards your neck. Feel that your neck muscles are completely relaxed. Your facial muscles, your jaws, nose, earlobes, your eyes, eyebrows, all are completely relaxed. Your mind is totally relaxed. Gently bring your attention towards your heart. Now, with the supposition that the divine light is in your heart and is attracting you inside, please start meditation till I say that's all. If any thought disturbs you, gently remind yourself that you are meditating. That's all. Gently open your eyes. You want to share your experience, you can share. I would like to end my presentation with this quote. Buddha was asked, "What have you gained from meditation?" He replied, "Nothing." However, Buddha said, "Let me tell you what I lost: anger, anxiety, depression, insecurity, fear of old age, and death. The mind, the uncontrolled and unguided, will drag us down forever, rend us, kill us, whereas the mind, controlled and guided, will save us, free us." So these are the two quotes of Swami Vivekananda. These are the references. I would like to thank Dr. Ravi sir for giving me an opportunity to share my views, and I also thank all the participants.
Hello, participants, if you have any queries, you can ask Madam.